Folks, at one rental at a time, we are so lucky. We have the man, myth, the legend, Lance Lambert from Fortune, and a great Twitter follow at News Lambert. How you doing, buddy? Housing.
Doing great. Yeah, like you said, housing. Always a lot going on. Although nowadays I might be saying real estate, because the story there, is even a little more interesting. Well, is more interesting outside of core residential.
No, I would agree. I think there's a lot more pain, a lot of more unknowns. I think a lot of people in the real estate game today only know the Great Recession, which was very residential oriented. I think what will transpire over the next 2 or 3 years will certainly impact residential, but the real pain, the real theater, the real liquidity drain is commercial real estate.
Yeah,
so that's going to be
and
fun.
before we get into today's topic, I want to do a quick plug.
Sure.
So, Fortune, we just did an interview this week with Ross Perot Jr.
Yeah.
Real estate mogul. And so we have his bearish thoughts on office space, but really just outside and just all of commercial. His thoughts here, especially when it comes to the fact that he's seeing lending tighten up so fast.
It's funny. We can pivot. We can make this video all about that interview because I think there's something that I've said that it'll be interesting if Ross Perot Jr. reiterated this. Lance, I think there are billionaires, and I jokingly refer to billionaire Barry Sternlicht, as an example of the billionaires who used to be billionaires. Because again, if you're in commercial real estate, you're very office, very hotel kind of oriented, and you are trying to restructure your debt at the wrong time with cap rates up, NOI down, liquidity drying up. You're in a bad spot. So you need to raise dry powder. And I think billionaire Barry Sternlicht sold his 2,000 homes, not because he's calling a peak in the market. It's because he needs cash. But what is Ross Perot Jr. have to say?
And so with Barry, with Starwood, I don't know if you saw my Twitter thread where I kind of went through 3 points. And the first point I had there was the fact that residential is holding up, right? It's firm, right? Yep. The prices are there. The second was the fact that they have all of these demands for capital with people trying to pull out of their funds, right?
Correct.
And the third point I had there is the fact that across the institutional landscape, there's been a sharp pullback in transactions for homes because cap rates are kind of in the gutter. The returns aren't great right now. Rent growth has slowed. And now you have, like Invitation Homes in these places being net sellers.
Yeah.
I didn't talk to Starwood and I've emailed them. They haven't gotten back to me. And so I don't want to come out and say, hey, connect these dots at the 3 points. But I think you did some of the connecting in terms of what it kind of feels like. And what it kind of feels like is it's like, okay, they need some capital, residential's holding up, and
let's sell that. Yeah. So again, I am truly a pleasure at one rental at a time, not only to have you here on the channel, but I have lenders who are in that space. And I just completed an interview with one of them earlier today. And they're like, that if you're going to get a loan, like, Starwood or any of those other billionaires, the best you could hope for today is a 50% LTV. And they probably got into this deal at 70 or 75. They probably had bridge debt or higher rates. They probably had a ridiculously low cap rate, and everything's gone against them. So there are a lot of billionaires, and again, they're not billionaires today, at least on the balance sheet, who can't sell, right? They can't sell this thing because it's underwater. They would lose money. They would recognize a loss. So the only thing they can sell now is single family homes because it's the only thing that's kind of holding up. And this is going to be a really known phrase in commercial this year. It's going to be called survive to 25. So they have 18 more months of pain, and they will do everything they can. They're watching their empires collapse. Barry has seen his mortgage company go bankrupt. He has stopped payments or distributions. He has people coming for, getting their funds out. And this is not about Barry. Barry is just one example of a lot of pain going on because people frankly overpaid. And it's always about debt. When we talked earlier about this being commercial theater and not residential, we kind of learned our lesson in residential, right? Loans coming into this period are 98% are fixed. You've seen the stats, 82% or thereabouts are below 5, whatever they are, like crazy. Residential is rather safe. Commercial, not so much. The debt resets, bridge debt resets at the wrong time. And
Yeah. So what Ross Perot Jr. told Fortune is, this isn't months, this is years.
Yes.
Where he plays the most in Texas isn't as affected as some of the other places he plays. New York's the one to watch, he said, because now there's a flight to very amenity heavy buildings, and it's a very expensive pivot for the offices, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. The other option is to go to residential. That doesn't make a lot of sense in terms of conversions. So tight spot. And that's that's the S word. That's supply. It's a glut of supply, and it doesn't go away overnight. I think that I don't know what these guys are rooting for necessarily. If we put ourselves in their shoes, one side you have Powell in the Fed holding rates higher for longer, causing a recession.
Correct.
Recession's not great for them.
No,
that's not great.
No, that's not great. That's a bad option. Can I have another option, please?
But if there's a speed to it, and maybe you could finally pull some of these people back into the offices and get those occupancy rates up. So there's that side of it. But then there's the other side of, okay, higher for longer, nothing breaks. So we're just in a higher rate environment. What if inflation or residential or gets inflation moving? That puts them even in a worse spot, I think.
I agreed. I mean, again, survive to 25 could become survive to 28.
Yeah.
That scenario.
Yeah. And some of these reports have office buildings not bottoming. One, that Columbia University in New York University joint paper has New York City office value troughing in 2029 down 40%.
29?
2029 down 49%.
Wow.
And last year they had, and it might be 40. Actually, I might have misspoke. I think they have them troughing at down 44%.
Okay.
Which, this, that number starts to become significant because these loans have a high amount of equity that has to be put down, right? So they have a big buffer. You know that. You tell people this all the time.
I keep reminding people, yes.
So 15-20 isn't doom necessarily.
No, 20% doesn't touch a bank. It doesn't touch a bank.
For the guys like Barry, it's going to be painful. But the bank, but once you start to move into the 30s or the 40s, that's hitting the banks. Now, the recession side of it, maybe you get people to come back into the offices. Maybe that helps with occupancy. Maybe that also helps to bring rates down, right? But it could also create bank distress. So it's like there's so much going on right now. And a lot of, I'll be honest with readers, some of this goes over my head and I'm trying to figure a lot of it out and try to put these pieces together. But this cycle is very different than the past ones. And
agreed.
The variable here is work from home and how quickly it happened, how high occupancy rates rose. And the other is how fast we went from a low rate environment to a higher rate environment.
Again, like you, right? I've been doing this a long time. And I own commercial and have done that. So I see it. I see the pieces snapping together. And I go back to Jackson Hole 8-minute speech from Jerome Powell. It is my belief, and I've said this publicly, so we can go find the receipts, that I thought Jerome Powell was going after the billionaires. Right? We're going higher for longer, faster, all of that stuff. And some of the billionaires reacted. Barry clearly did. Barry stayed at the buffet too long and didn't restructure his debt, and now he's paying the price. I think there is a good chance that Powell stays higher for longer, meaning no cuts for well over a year. And I think Barry and other billionaires are very clear. They want option 3. They want something to break so rates fall. That's the only thing that saves them, Lance. Higher for longer doesn't help. Recession doesn't help. They are, and again, and you said this earlier, I want people to hear this. People think commercial crashing is going to kill the banks. It will hurt some banks. It will hurt some banks that are oriented or over-rotated to San Francisco commercial. You're going to be in trouble. But this won't be systemic because commercial financing, generally speaking, has 35% equity. So Barry and his billionaire buddies get wrecked. The banks, not so much. If you're an LP on something, you're going to get wrecked. The bank, not so much.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to kind of see how it plays out, and if it does kind of start to move over there. Although, Powell did say this week that there would be losses for the banks, but then he also didn't seem too worried about it either. And it's worth reminding people that they did choose to do the fastest rate hiking cycle in 40 years.
No question.
They did choose to do another 50 basis points of hikes after the bank failures.
Correct.
And they knew that the bank failures would tighten lending and was essentially a hike of its own. And we've now seen for residential, it looks like the increase in the spread is essentially one rate hike just on residential.
Yeah, I love that you track that. Great job.
And so he kept going despite all of that. So I don't know if that is confidence in the banks and confidence in the financial system, or if it's also like, hey, we kind of need some pain here to kind of get through this.
Yeah, I mean, it's been my long-held belief that Jerome Powell wants to clean up his reputation. I think if you looked at his reputation 6 months ago, he would be known as the transitory guy. Nobody wants to wear that. I think he is now out to get what's called the Fed put. Again, I think Jackson Hole was a shot at the billionaires. Like, I'm coming for you. Stop expecting the Fed to bail out your dumb decisions. And now we're seeing it. I think there will be, again, people don't realize this. There will be billionaires that are no longer billionaires. I did some math with a well-known commercial real estate broker, and it took a single cap rate change from 3.5 to 4.5, which is not crazy, and an NOI drop of 12%. And you could go from a net worth of $1 billion to a negative net worth of $1 billion.
Wow.
Just like that.
And, Ross Perot, Jr., when he was talking to us, he told Fortune that, this is not the environment they've been in for 40 years. They've been in the opposite environment, him and his dad, he said, so yeah, it'll be interesting.
Yeah. Where can people find this amazing article? Because I will certainly be reading it.
Google Ross Perot Jr. Fortune.com, and it should be the first thing that pops up. And then when you find it, at the very top of the piece, we have a 50-year-old article about this rising businessman in Texas.
Cool.
Ross Perot. So it's a young Ross Perot featured in Fortune. So it's worth a read too.
Wow, 50. That'd be fun to go back in the looking glass and see what was said 50 years ago. Lance, I appreciate you. What is your Twitter handle? Because you are doing daily stuff that people need to watch. Yeah, people can find me at News Lambert and Lance Lambert Fortune. If you Google, you can find my articles. There you go. Thank you, buddy.